Well, welcome to a very special edition of Voices of the Valley, part of the Valley Hoops Insider website. I'm Harry Schrader, editor of the site, host of this show. Super excited today to have our good friend Art Hains with us today. Many of you have been thinking about and praying for Art Hains over the last about 12 months, just a little under 12 months, when he contracted a rare sickness, disease, West Nile disease. We're going to talk to him about all of that today on the Voices of the Valley. And we bring our friend Art Hains into the picture there. And Art, man, it's so good to see you and so good to connect. Boy, how do I want to start this? About a year ago, you got a mosquito bite. And wow, what a year it's been. Can you reflect back at all, like to the early stages? Like, man, what on earth was going on?
Well, it kind of was. I did the Bears game at Arkansas last September and kind of felt some weakness in my legs after the game, which I attributed to having to carry my bag of equipment about 4 blocks. And I finally just gave up and found a guy with a bicycle rickshaw to take me the rest of the way. My partner had gone ahead to get the car, and of course, huge crowd there, and streets blocked off and everything. So I asked him to drive home, which was very unusual for me, but I just thought my legs were tired. And Sunday, I felt like I had a kidney stone. I went to the emergency room and was there in the waiting room for 6 hours. And they finally sent me home and said, "You don't have a kidney stone." Monday, I still didn't feel right. Went to my regular doctor, and he didn't really have a diagnosis at that time because I had full use of all my extremities. But that night, I lost feeling in my legs, and my wife called 911, went to the hospital, and I don't remember much over about the next month, but was diagnosed with West Nile.
What a crazy story. And people can dig into all the details. Your buddy, my friend Wyatt Wheeler, wrote a great piece in the local paper there in the Springfield paper, kind of detailing the whole journey and what a friend he's been during all of this time for you.
He really has been. He's been a great friend. He and I co hosted a radio sports show for about 2 years before this happened. And he came up, I was in Nebraska for 7 months at two different facilities, and he came up a couple of times to see me, and it comes by regularly here. So yeah, he continues to be a great friend.
You mentioned Nebraska. You were in Springfield, a hospital in Kansas City, then in Nebraska. I mean, what a journey. Where there was, I guess there had to have been a time, Lord, Art, maybe more than once, that you thought, I'm just not going to make it. Was that a real reality for you?
Only once or twice. I mean, again, I didn't remember the worst part, I guess, when they were telling my family that I probably wasn't going to make it. Got to Nebraska. I remember being wheeled into the first place and kind of gradually started to come back around as to what was going on. And of course, I wanted to know how the Bears were doing and the Chiefs were doing. And we watched every Chiefs game, but it took me a while to really kind of get my mind back right. The first Nebraska place, though, kind of gave up on me toward the end, I think. And, it was in the story that Wyatt wrote. There was this one woman who was in charge of palliative care, and I called her the angel of death. She came in the night before I was going to another place down the street in Lincoln, Nebraska, and said I needed to get my affairs in order and be thinking about do not resuscitate orders and
Wow.
things like that. And I wasn't just not going to entertain that
Good for
because
you.
I didn't think I was done. And there were a couple of times that it was kind of iffy, but the second place in Lincoln was excellent for me. They were very positive. Got really close to the staff there. The physical therapy was good. They're really the ones who's called the ambassador, and they're the ones that got me back here to Springfield. During the time that I was at the ambassador, the Lady Bears got sent to Nebraska to play in the WNIT.
I
Now,
remember.
what are the odds of that happening? Just right down the street from where I was. So my nurse there said, "We're going to get you to that game."
Come
So
on.
she did. I got the tickets from Missouri State, and she got the van, and we went. Just had a great time. Coach Beth came over and gave me a fist bump before the game, and So that was great to get out and to see them, and further impetus towards to really getting back home. And since we've been back here, we've gotten out in the community quite a bit, and people have come by to see us, which has been very gratifying and fun. Brought food, brought dinner, and we've had a good time being back.
Coach Beth is a good one. I interviewed her maybe 2 months ago. I'm super impressed with her.
Yeah, I am too. I am too. She great credentials, Notre Dame, Duke, and she's going to get it done. This, of course, is a Lady Bears program with a great tradition, and
Yeah.
I think she's just going to follow on in that tradition.
One of the silver linings in all of this for me was getting to know your son Chris a little bit. He was kind of the spokesman and
He was.
the guy that got everybody up to speed on what was going on with you. He's a fine young man. I'm super impressed.
Well, thank you, and I'm very proud of him. And he was the family spokesman. He was on the Chiefs pregame show about 3 times during the fall, giving updates on me. And I know you had him on in St. Louis during the conference tournament, which that's the first one I've ever missed since it's been in St. Louis. But I think he missed one. He usually doesn't come over if we're in the play-in game, but now the play-in is going to be 4 games, so that's not going to be as much of a letdown as it used to be. But yeah, he did a great job, and I did not know really, as I knew a little bit that the Chiefs medical staff helped me get into KU Med Center, but I didn't know as much as I did after I read the story and Wyatt had done the research on that, and they were out of beds, and the story went. Dr. Monaco of the Chiefs asked him, "Well, if we had a player that needed a bed, would you find a bed for him?" And they said, "Well, sure." It said, "Well, this is one of our players.
Come on,
he needs to get in there." So I owe a lot to them, and Mitch Holtis and Dan Israel and all the folks in Kansas City.
Yeah, I read Wyatt's story. I mean, I knew so much of it, but so much of it I didn't know. And I thought his story was amazing. He obviously worked hard on it and cares deeply about you. Art, what was it like to hear from Valley fans, the Missouri Valley family, the Chiefs family, that all of those kinds of people that maybe some of them a lot, some of them you don't know at all, but people responding?
Yeah, I mean, my colleagues around the Valley, print and broadcast, to hear from them. Got some shout outs during the conference tournament. John Rooney on the telecast and so on. That really has meant an awful lot to be thought of in that way.
So I wanted to ask you, I mean, all along, and no doubt you were thinking, I got to get back. I want to get back to what I'm doing, what I was doing before. But at what point, Art, did you actually look at your own life and the situation that was going on and say, you know what, I'm going to get back. This is really a reality. I'm going to get back and do games again.
Yeah, I thought that when I was at Ambassador in Lincoln. And, we got back here on May 24th to Springfield. It just accelerated from there. The two biggest skeptics were my wife and Chris, because I think they thought I was going to embarrass myself, and people were going to remember me in a diminished state. And I thought, we're going to get back and do this. So we've been doing the Chiefs pre and post game from here in the room where I'm staying, which is a place with, again, great physical therapy, and been very pleased to be here. But we did a practice run, pulled up a game from 2 years ago, and Corey Riggs came over to do color, and it went pretty well. So I thought, well, this can be something that can happen. But I went up to the broadcast booth several times to make sure. I'm in a motorized wheelchair right now. I've got use in my arms, but not my legs. I've got feeling in my legs, and we are hoping and praying that they'll come back. But so far, I'm in the motorized wheelchair, so I'm able to get into the booth fine, but I couldn't see the whole field. So Missouri State made accommodations. They built a platform for me to give me some height, and then built a ramp for me to just drive up onto the platform and see the whole field. And that worked out well for the first. I'm only doing home games this year, so I've just done one. But I mean, I had trouble seeing the players. I've always used binoculars for football to make sure I don't get faked out and see who has the ball and so on. and everything was kind of fuzzy through the binoculars. So I just had to do it from the naked eye, and I could see the formations and whether it was a run or a pass. I couldn't always see who caught the pass. So Corey kind of picked me up on the back end, and now we've ordered some different binoculars, so hopefully that'll address that problem. So it was not up to my standards last game, but people were so kind and said they enjoyed just having me back on the air, and hopefully we'll be a little bit more complete in the future.
You mentioned Corey, and I think of Don West and other people that have been faithfully taking care of business for you. Every one of those guys, I talked to all those guys during this whole time. They're like, well, we're glad to do it, and we're keeping the seat warm for Art. He's coming back. I mean, those guys have been in your corner nonstop the whole time.
Yeah, they have, and both came up to Nebraska to see me, as did a lot of people. Of course, for the road games this year, we have Steve Savard, who worked in St. Louis as voice of the Rams for years, and now is the CBS affiliate weeknight news anchor here in Springfield. But when I found out from a mutual friend that Steve might be wanting to do some sports again, I thought, wow, that'd be a great get. So he's doing the road games, I'm doing the home games. Corey's doing color for all of them, and we think it's working out pretty well.
I tweeted out at one point, I said, man, Art is so good that his backup is a former Super Bowl announcing football announcer in the NFL. That's how good Art Hains is. Before you got to Bears, you started doing some of the Chiefs games, the Chief pregame and whatnot. Again, that was kind of a big breakthrough, probably.
It was. And to hear Dan Israel say how much they wanted me back and missed me last year, that was very big motivator. Uh, so yeah, we're doing it from here. A big shout out to my daughter Kathleen. She's a stage manager. She's in charge of all of that at Missouri State in their department of theater and dance, and so she's my stage manager here. She comes over during the week and helps me listen to the player and coach sound that they send out and post during the week, and we pick out what we want to use on the pregame show, and then I script out the about 4 segments of the pregame ahead of time, and she helps me write those, and then she's here with me on game days, get me the live ad copy when I need to read it, and so on. So she's been a tremendous help.
That place has got to have great Wi-Fi or whatever you've got set up there to make it all happen.
Well, they dropped me an Ethernet port down from the ceiling in one corner of my room, and so we just connect to this studio in Kansas City, and boom, it's connected in 2 seconds. And then I'm on headset with the producer in Kansas City all day, and we stay in communication on things. We've done it this way many times before, and usually brought on by wherever the Bears were on Saturday night, and not making it possible for me to get to Kansas City. And it really sounds like I'm in the same studio with him. So
right.
It works out pretty well.
What was last week? You mentioned the football game and the binoculars and all of that. It had to be an emotional time. And how did you block out? How did you experience and then block out the emotions?
Well, I'm glad I'd been up there before and checking out the press box. I didn't want it to be, first time. Oh, it's a
right.
game. And, I've called virtually every game in that booth since the stadium was expanded in 1991 until last year.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the saddle, kind of, and it's such a familiar place. That really was a special feeling for me.
When you open up the broadcast, can you tell us what it sounded like? What was it? Did you go status quo or did you let people in a little bit?
I scripted out what I wanted to say right away when we went on the air on the pregame, and I just said, beautiful day in the Ozarks and Bears in Utah Tech, and then I made a brief statement that thanked the people that have been so supportive to me and my family for their visits and their cards and their thoughts and prayers. Great to be back. And now, Corey, it's the Bears and Trailblazers, Ryan Beard's first home game, and off we go. So I acknowledged it, and then we went on to the game.
And Coach Beard's first ever win for the Bears, or home win there for the Bears, that was a big day.
It really was, and not close. So everybody felt a lot better after that game, and I really felt great for him. when Bobby Petrino was hired,
Mm.
we figured, given his history and given the fact that this was FCS, he wouldn't be with us terribly long. And once I got to know Ryan, I thought, I hope Bobby leaves him here as the next head coach. And that's exactly what happened. He's head coach material. Now he is a head coach. And I think he's going to get it done and continue the momentum that Bobby started. A remarkable turnaround, really, from what had been an underachieving program for years to back-to-back playoff appearances.
Before I let you go, Art, tell us just you mentioned having some feeling in your legs. How can we be praying for you? How, tell us what you're working on. My wife is a retired physical therapist. When you talk
Ah,
about physical therapy, like I've known hundreds of her stories, right, without their names attached, and
sure.
and so I have a high regard for that. Tell us what is going on. What's the process of healing like, and how can we pray?
Well, every other day they put me on what I call the rack. They strap me in and crank me up to about 70 degrees. They call it the tilt table. It sounds like a medieval torture device when I call it the rack, but they did that in Nebraska too. And so that gets blood flow down to my legs and feet. And my feet are on the floor and I can feel them. And then while we're up there, we'll do some arm curls, various things, some resistance bands. Then on the other days, they have me on a table about a foot off the floor. My feet are on the floor, and work on my sitting up, unsupported, my balance, and they'll kind of push me left and right, and back and forth, and I try to keep my balance. So working on my core strength. So
Right.
and I've gotten to where if they pull my knees together, I can kind of pull them apart. So that's a big move there. So just prayers for eventual use of my legs, but if not, we're fine. I'm a miracle from God that I'm still here. So
Absolutely.
from that standpoint, I've always had a good attitude and felt like I was going to get back to doing what I love to do, and back in Springfield, where I have so much support. So we are back to doing both of those things.
Well, brother, I mean, there's a lot of people in Springfield that love you and care about you and have been praying for you. But I'm telling you, all across the Valley world, there's been people pulling for Art Hains and praying for you. And I know the Valley office here, they've been like just constantly, well, how's Art? What's going on?
Yeah.
And so we wanted to have you on today, and we're so excited that you're back in the saddle and continuing to pray for more and more healing.
Thanks, Harry. I appreciate that very much. I mean, I've heard from Doug Elgin and Jack Watkins and Mike Reese. Kind of took a tour of the valley during the
Yeah, you did.
summer. He came by to see me, so that means a lot. All of it does.
You're a great man, a good friend. Appreciate your time today, and we're continuing to pray for you. That is Art Hains, the legendary broadcaster there at Missouri State and on the mend all the way back. That's what we're praying for. Don't forget, everybody, since you've been there, make it a better place. You've been watching Voices of the Valley, part of the Valley Hoops Insider podcast, right here on valleyhoopsinsider.com. We say goodbye to you, and thanks for watching.